first ever castle that was built in West Africa was built in Elmina. It is known as the Elmina Castle or the St. George's Castle, built by the Portuguese 1482. It is about 542 years old, one of the oldest, biggest European structure found in sub-Saharan Africa. The second one built in Accra, the capital town of Ghana, known as Christianborg or the Osu Castle, built by the Danish or the Denmark, 1661. It is about 363 years old. This is the last castle we find ourselves today, Cape Coast Castle. Cape Coast Castle was built by the British, but before the British finally settled here 1664-1665, this land had changed hands 5 times, which means other European nations were occupying this place before the British finally took over this edifice. So the Portuguese were here at a point in time. They built a wooden lodge just for their trading purposes. At a point in time, they were fought away by the Swedish. They came to build a fort in here. At a point in time, they were fought by the Danes. The Danes took over the fort. The Dutch came to fight the Danes from here, and finally, the British took over this edifice. So this edifice we see here is credited to the British. This castle purposely built for the transatlantic slave trade. So talking about the transatlantic slave trade, before the Europeans came to West Africa, already they were trading with the Arabs at the northern part of Africa. They were trading in spices, gold, ivory, slaves, amongst others. That is the trans-Saharan slave trade. At a point in time, the Europeans wanted to get monopoly over the trade. That is when they started an exploration to find a new sea route to the resources themselves, so that they would avoid paying high taxes to the middlemen, that is the Arabs. In their quest to circumvent the Arabs, that is when on their exploration, one man called Christopher Columbus claimed he had discovered the New World, but already when he reached there were indigents in there. The indigents were known as the Red Indians or the Native Americans, the original settlers of the land. Upon reaching there, they realized the land was fertile enough for cultivation. They established tobacco plantations, cotton plantations, sugar plantations, amongst others, and other mines. Upon establishing these plantations and mines, the indigents were subjected to labor in the New World. At a point in time, because of the introduction of European diseases, the indigents were dying out. In their quest to replace this labor, that is when one priest called Bartolomeo de las Casas, he was a Catholic missionary. He suggested that they should come in to take Africans to work in the New World because Africans were strong, working under similar climatic conditions in here. Africans were also practicing agriculture, so if they are to take Africans to the New World, possibly they would be more productive on the lands. So that is the genesis of the transatlantic slave trade. So 1500 officially a charter was given to them to start taking slaves from Africa into the New World. Slaves were captured as far from places like Nigeria, Burkina Faso, Togo, Ivory Coast. Wherever they were captured from, they marched them down to this place. They just created resting points for them so that at a point in time they rest before they continue the journey. Upon reaching Asin Mansun, that is where the slaves take their last bath. In there, those who have gray hair, bushy hair, they are shaved for them to look young. After bathing them, they smear them with shea butter to cure their wounds and also to make them look fresh. Because in here, their strength determines the commodity for the exchange. So that's why they were shaving them for them to look young and fresh. Upon reaching the castle, the very first place they visit is the Palaver Hall. In the Palaver Hall, that is where the European merchants are, basically the slave market. So in there, they bring in the slaves. The European merchants, together with their nurses and doctors, would examine the slaves. Thereafter, the auctioning goes on. After the auctioning goes on, they march them down to the forecourt. In the forecourt, they branded them because it was not only one company coming in to buy the slaves. They needed to identify their various slaves. So down here, they had branding metals for embossment. So they put it in fire for it to become hot. They put it in oil, then they brand the slaves. Doing this just for easy identification, so that when the various slave companies' ships come in, they would be able to identify their slaves in the dungeons, move them into the ships. So that was what was transpiring in here, the genesis of the transatlantic slave trade. We will continue the tour in the mail and slave dungeon. Please, if you have any questions, I answer before we continue. Please, any questions? Okay, so that was their only source of light and ventilation. So in the mail and slave dungeon, we have 5 chambers in here. Each chamber will take about 100 to 200 enslaved African men in here. In here, they were doing everything in here. They urinate, they go to toilet, sometimes they are fed in here, they sleep in here. At a point in time, because the domestic slaves were not able to come around to clean the place, the waste mixed up with sand solidified and covered the whole place. So in the year 1974, archaeologists from the University of Ghana came to do an excavation in this very chamber. After the excavation, that's when they realized the original floor of the dungeons is the bricks we are seeing now. They took the samples and they went to test, and it proved scientifically that indeed everything that they were working on or they were sleeping on in here was the waste of the acid. That was the urine, toilet, food particles, sweat mixed up with sand that was covering the whole place. So after the excavation, that's when they realized there was a trench in here. So they created this trench so that when it rains, the rainwater would come in to wash away some of the soluble waste into the sea. But we ask ourselves, how many times does the rainwater even come in through these small holes? The rainwater only comes in when the wind blows to this direction. Aside that, in here, no rain comes in there. So they left examples for us. Some of them have not seen the ocean before.